hello and welcome to Just Joe's Leeds Ladies. We still haven't come up with an official title, but that is okay. We will wing it just like we wing most things in life. We're going to be talking about, obviously, the game and catching up with the emotions of the last week. We've finally, all four of us are here together. Your eyes are not deceiving you. We are all on one screen together once again. Let's welcome Danny back. Weary traveller, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. It was lovely to be away for 2 weeks, needed. It's been a stressful year on a personal level, but it was lovely to land back during a storm. So, always the benefits of Britain this time.
Yeah, I did that on the way back from Florida this year. We got delayed because Florida, for anybody who hasn't been, is quite stormy in August. So yeah, I feel your pain when it comes to flying and landing when it's stormy. Was it Leeds Bradford that you were coming into?
It was actually Birmingham.
Birmingham. All right. Well, that's all right.
So
it's a slightly nicer airport.
Yeah, it saved like £500, so it was worth it.
Absolutely. You just have to deal with Brummies for just a tiny bit. Lucy, how's your week been?
Yeah, my week's been good. Yeah, thank you. Just plodding on. Yeah.
Just plodding on.
No, always.
Kaylee, how has your week been? I've been loving the Instagram updates of your week. It keeps me feeling, well, really old because my life's not that interesting. So it's great to live through your life.
Thank you. Honestly, it's been really busy. Obviously, I met Lucy in Leeds on Saturday, and I've been at Huddersfield Town games, and I've been called a dog botherer quite a lot. So I don't want to talk about that. Don't want to talk about it.
What was that jumper though? That is a no.
Right, hear me out. I knew it was going to come up. Hear me out. So, I forgot to bring my coat to the game, so I was getting drenched. So I was like, I'm gonna have to put a jumper on. And it happened to be a town jumper. I apologise. But you're gonna have to get used to seeing me in town clothes because I do like sort of work for the women. So
I mean that's okay. It's a professional bit. We all have our crosses to bear, and yours is just a dog-shaped cross. But yeah, I love watching your updates. It's absolutely brilliant. Every time I'm like, oh God, she's living the dream. Strange dream, but it's the dream.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Right, let's crack on to the actual game. I think we were all feeling anxious, but slightly, we were positive going in. Obviously, we had the late stab to the heart in the Bournemouth game, but there were a lot of positives to take from that. Obviously, Bournemouth have continued to perform brilliantly, putting Fulham to the sword on Friday night, and at the time I think obviously there was nobody else had played. I think they went to second in the table at that point, so a point against a top 4 team is looking like a very good point right now. So we were all fairly confident, but Tottenham, well, Leeds did a Leeds and Tottenham did a something else because obviously they ended up getting all 3 points there. I'll come to you, Kaylee, first. What were your thoughts and feelings? Were you anxious? Obviously, other than wearing Huddersfield Town clothing, there was nothing really to be anxious about. So, what were your fears or hopes going into the game?
So I was pretty confident to begin with. I wasn't too worried, judging by previous performances and other statistics. But I wasn't, when they scored the first goal. I wasn't scared. I was like, we'll get back into it, and we did like 11 minutes later. So I was like, yeah, let's keep it going. We didn't have a bad game. We didn't have a bad game either. It was like we dominated possession, things like that. So I was quite disappointed that we didn't take more from the game.
Yeah, I think that's back-to-back games where we've had a huge sense of almost being robbed and disappointment at the end. You're nodding there, Lucy. How were you feeling how were you feeling at the start of the game, and how were you feeling at the end of the game?
At the start of it, normally for 12:30 kickoffs, it's almost like everyone's just sort of opened the peepers and they're just like getting up for it. But the atmosphere was really good from like minute one. I was a bit apprehensive going into it, but I think that's just my personality. I'm just apprehensive going into everything, so I won't take that. When Tottenham scored, I thought, right, we're going to do a classic Leeds. We can come back into it. You know, we've gone behind. We're going to come back. But I was gutted leaving Elland Road. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. Danny, did it put a dampener on your holiday spirits, or were you too deep in the ouzo to be that bothered?
Well, I don't mess with ouzo, because when you reach
wise woman,
our age,
Evie,
you've normally had some bad nights on certain
alcohols
and never touch them ever again. But other than that, do you know, I'm actually kind of approaching each game quite pragmatically. So the way I saw this stretch was 3 against Wolves and 1 somewhere else. I thought it would be Fulham, which obviously we didn't get. I've been on since then, so we've discussed that game. But we got the 1 against Bournemouth, which was a brilliant point, as gutting as the extra time concession of an equalizer was. So I went in, although I thought maybe we could do something here, maybe we could get a point. I felt, because Tottenham do look okay this season, I wasn't too upset, because I'm just going 4 games, 4 points, point a game. I know Joe's got his 10 wins. I've got point a game. We're on track. We're okay.
Yeah.
So it'd have been lovely to take something, and I think a boost of confidence for the boys. I didn't feel too negative myself. We need to do it again next stretch. That's all I've got in my head this season, which takes away from the joy a little bit, but I felt we'd done what we need to do, so I hope for the best in this game, and sadly we didn't come away with anything. And I was a little bit upset about Farke's throw all the attackers on kind of tactic coming back up again, because it rarely works.
Let's talk about that, because at first I was exactly the same. I was like, oh great, he's just doing the whole let's throw 6 attackers on and screw defense, and we're going to end up, you know, losing 4-1 in the end because we've got no defense. So I really share in your frustrations with that. But then I thought we actually could have got something right at the death, and that was, you know, it would have been a Dominic Calvert-Lewin assist with a Pirro finish. So without putting those strikers on, and considering how we don't have right now, with no Nonto and no Dan James, we don't have wing attacking options. Obviously we have Jack Harrison to come on, but he's not the same Jack Harrison as under Bielsa. And also, even under Bielsa, he was never that kind of grab it by the scruff of the neck, we're going to do this kind of thing. He was very consistent, he will do a job. And this isn't my kind of new, fairly low opinion of Jack Harrison coming out. This is genuinely me being pragmatic. But I do think that he didn't have that many options. So he had to do something to try and win the game. I think if Dan James and Nonto, or just one of them, was available, I don't think he goes 3 strikers. I think he does adapt to it slightly better, but I can completely understand the frustration, because I was shouting at the TV, and once Carmevy had kind of stepped into mode, then I was like, well, those are the only options that he's got to try and do something. And it almost came off. You know, if Pirro gets that shot, we're all feeling completely different about the game. A bit like if Tanaka doesn't give away the free kick last week, we're feeling completely different about Bournemouth. What do we think about Calvert-Lewin and his misses? Lucy, I'm going to come to you with this. What are we feeling? Is he under any sort of pressure, or is any talk like that a bit daft at this point in the season?
I feel like every other sort of attribute to his game, so his hold-up play, his ability to win free kicks, is all there, and he is sort of that target man that we need to get out of the danger. But I have actually wrote something down, and I was going to ask, if Calvert-Lewin was Bamford, would we all be slating him right now?
Oh, that is a very, very good point. In fact,
we would.
I was just going to say, Kaylee, shall we throw this one over to you as our Bamford defender?
I think we would. Like, it seems as though every time Bamford made like a slight mistake, we'd just like slate him. He couldn't win. If Patrick Bamford were missing the chances Dominic Calvert-Lewin is, we wouldn't hear the end of it.
Okay, now I'm going to throw in a counterpoint here. Bamford doesn't hold up, doesn't receive the ball like Dominic Calvert-Lewin did, and doesn't give us that same options.
Yep.
So do we have to start getting on his back now, or can we wait until the next international break when we're still getting frustrated with him missing opportunities? What do you think, Danny? We'll go to. Well, in fact, we'll go to you first, Kaylee. And you can choose to defend Bamford again.
Right. No, I think that obviously it's disappointing that Dominic Calvert-Lewin is missing those chances. But however, I think that he holds well in other areas. So if the chances are important, but he's versatile enough to, like, for other people to score. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, Dan, you can talk now. I'm sorry.
Don't apologise ever.
Well, I'm going to go back to Lucy's question first, which is Bamford did get a lot of leeway for a year, 2 years. He got a hard time when we were in the playoffs. Don't get me wrong, and I think well deserved. But he got a lot of time to become vocally frustrated from the fan base. And I think that Calvert-Lewin, certainly after he's had so little playing time for quite a few years now due to injury, needs a little bit more time. And that's not an attack on Bamford. He was a frustrating player, but when he was on it before all the injuries and he was never quite himself again, he was fantastic for us. For every 3 he missed, he'd score 1, which under Bielsa was fine. But we don't quite have that system right now, so we just need to stay a little bit patient with Calvert-Lewin whilst he gets up to speed. But Calvert-Lewin has always also been that kind of player. He would waste a few chances before he got one in the back of the net. And I think we knew that when we signed him, and clearly we were okay with that. I hope he will come good and score a good few goals for us, but it's good that we're having other players, other attackers, obviously Okafor more notably in the past few weeks, putting the ball in the back of the net for us to sort of make up where he's missed. And Perot got, a good strike saved. We did have other chances. It easily could have ended 2-2 that game, in my opinion. So I think there's some leeway for him. But if we're here in, I don't know how many months it is until sort of April time, I might be getting frustrated. But that's just more the passion for Leeds than necessarily
and I think
it being reasonable.
I think if it's harnessed correctly, we all have the right to be frustrated with any player that puts on a Leeds shirt, because we pay good money. We pay good money for TV subscriptions. We pay good money for, merchandise. We pay good money for season tickets or for whatever ticket you can get. So I think we all have the right to be frustrated. But at the same time, it's getting that balance of frustration versus supporting your team and the players that are in it. And obviously, a lot of that starting lineup are fairly new. So not only new to the system, new to the manager, new to the club, new to the area as well. You know, a lot of them will have had to uproot family and things and countries to come here. So we're still very early on in the season because of obviously international breaks. It seems like the season's been going on forever, but it's been very stop start. But I do think that, for me anyway, Dominic Calvert-Lewin has felt like there's more. The goal is like on the cusp of his foot type of thing. It's just so close, and it just needs that extra either match fitness, sharpness, or even his own self-belief to get him over that line. Feel free to call me out on this. Like Danny said, if in a few months' time he is still not scoring those chances. But I think at the minute he definitely deserves our support rather than our criticism. We can critique everything, but I don't think that we should get on his back anytime soon. We know his history because obviously he's been a Premier League player. But we don't know his history for us, whereas we knew Bamford's history for us. So we had definitely earned the right to be critical of Bamford. I'm sorry, Kaylee, I'm sorry. But, you know, we had earned the right by that point to say this isn't good enough. Right now, Dominic Calvert-Lewin is a brand new player to us. And we've seen how players thrive under certain managers. So just because he was incredibly injury prone, just because he was wasteful at another club, doesn't necessarily mean he's always going to follow that same trajectory. So let's give him a chance and allow him to disappoint us later on in the season instead. Shall we go to Spurs' top goal scorer this season, or second top goal scorer this season, which is own goals? Now, obviously, none of the goals actually went down as own goals, but they both took a Struijk heavy, really unfortunate deflection. We had the first goal at the 23rd minute with Tell, which was a really, really unfortunate deflection and meant that Caldalo wasn't ever really going. If the ball had carried on the trajectory that he thought it was going on, I think it would have been a very comfortable save. Unfortunately, Struijk was trying to defend as he should have done. He didn't do, in my opinion anyway, he didn't do anything wrong. It was just a series of unfortunate events. Kaylee, what were you devastated? Were you angry? Were you, oh well, it's one of those things when the ball hit the back of the net? What were your thoughts on the goal?
Well, I was really disappointed. I thought it could have been prevented, but it is what it is. That's just how I watch Leeds these days. It is what it is.
Yeah, no, I agree. It felt very oh, for God's sake, Leeds type of thing, you know. And these things happen to teams all over, but we always seem to very, I don't know, have a bit of a self-pity of why always Leeds. Lucy, you were there as well. Explain it to me. You know, should Struijk have done anything different? Do you reckon Darlow could have saved it?
I think it's a very harsh deflection, and I think I've seen a lot over Twitter. People say Struijk can do better, blah blah blah, and a lot of people say that they prefer Biol to be in. But I just think with that, other than Arsenal way, Struijk's not really put a foot out of place, and we're talking about a Champions League side. I mean, they had the likes of Richarlison on the bench. He would start for us week in, week out. I think is just that gulf in individual quality.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Do you reckon, Danny, that's what won the game in the end for Spurs? Was, you know, the match plan seemed to be working, you know, and when you look at so many of the statistics, you know, we had 16 shots to Spurs' 9, 4 on target to Spurs' 3. Was it just the caliber of player that ended up swinging it for Spurs in the end?
Yeah, I think it was. I think they had the ability to get those shots off. But like you said, with it being deflections, it's also an element of luck. But that's what happens. You know, it's like Ipswich 2 years ago, but at a different level. When you just keep shooting and it's somewhere near that goal, eventually it'll come off another player's shin or boot or body sometimes, and you get lucky, but equally it's the own luck that you've made. You just got lucky in how it was sort of deflected off for the goalkeeper's reaction time.
Yeah.
So I do think there's an element of that class, because there were periods where when they had the ball, we just didn't seem to be able to get a hold of possession at all. And that shows that class difference. But what I would say is, even though we lost, nearly all our games, other than Arsenal, of course, have showed that at quite a high level and do well at that level. We seem to be able to keep ourselves in. And if it wasn't for that unlucky deflection, just it would have been a 1-1 game against, I agree with what Lucy said, what I think could be a Champions League team this year. And if not, certainly Europe. They're a lot better than they were last year, at least at league level.
Yeah. Kaylee, what do you think that maybe if Farke had have had the options? I know obviously we can't do anything about it now, but given that both of our really attacking wing options are both injured, do you think that if we'd have had a Nonto or a Dan James, considering how fit in general the team is, that we could have changed the outlook of the game in the end?
I don't think so. I reckon we did everything we can on the pitch anyway. So the only thing we're missing is the goals. So essentially, I think everything we needed was on the pitch already. So,
yeah, no, that's a fair point. You know, we can't do much more. Obviously, we then get the equalizer. Let's talk about Okafor and the fact that he seems to be our bit of pizzazz in terms of, I think he is going to be vital. Lucy, what is your opinion? You know, is Okafor improving week on week? You know, obviously you see him there in the flesh. I'm just one of these you know, show fans that only watches on the TV the majority of the time. So what is he like, you know, actually watching him on the pitch? You know, is he selfish? Is he, you know, what kind of player is he coming across as?
I feel like every game I watch Okafor, his confidence seems to just grow and grow. I mean, there was a moment, it was about 5 minutes into the match, and we'd got a corner and he just came over to the south stand and was giving it, come on, all the atmosphere. And I just think he's starting to settle now. I think there's times where he runs the ball and I think he should have passed it there. But obviously, you're always going to have that.
Yes. Kaylee, do we need more from him defensively? Because the ball does seem to end up coming back at us down his side of the pitch quite a few times. Obviously, when you look at the defensive output from Aronson versus the defensive output from Okafor so far, what are we thinking? Does he need to step up? Is that something that Farke may? Because we know that Farke isn't afraid to dig out at players, you know, when they're not doing what he wants them to do defensively.
I I am enjoying Noah Okafor's play recently, and I do feel like he does need to step up. But so far, I think he looks really impressive. But I also want to give praise to Aronson because I think he looks really good as well. But yeah, Okafor looks really good. But yeah, you're right. I do think he needs to step up a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. I was waiting for this this comment to come up. Dr. Scott should have kept Ramazani.
We should have.
Yeah, and it is now, you know, it is now feeling like it because it feels like as soon as we've run out of legs or run out of ideas, we don't have that player that can come on. Because at the minute, everybody knows I love Dan James, but obviously he's been consistently injured now for months. And similar to Bamford, he's not being given potentially the chance to get better. He's just going straight back in there and been expected to be a game changer. And when you've had repeated injuries, it might be a case that he might never be that player that he was last season. So, was it negligent? Was it arrogant of the 49ers to allow that, regardless of what a player wants to do? At the end of the day, they're under contract. You know, should we have got somebody in before, you know, before letting Ramazani go? Why do we keep on doing that? Because we did it actually with Dan James and the Nonto situation. You know, Nonto, as Jesse Marsh put, wasn't ready for the first team. He was under 21s player. So we allowed Dan James to go without replacing him. And now we've let Ramazani go without replacing him as well. So what do you think, Danny? You know, is it negligent or are we just moaning for the sake of moaning?
I'll be honest, I thought it was negligent at the time anyway. I understand why there was some issues with playing time and the tracking back with Farke last season. I wasn't screaming that he should play every game. I completely understood, but with the lack of incomings we had in the attack at that period and transpired to the end of the season, I felt it was negligent at the time because he clearly does have a spark, even if all you're keeping him for is 10 minutes at the end of a game. But when you see, like's been mentioned, the injuries we have now, could you, and I understand they play on the same wing, but could you potentially have one in the middle and one on the wing, on either wing, see if that works? Just when you're in this kind of place and you need that spark, could you be working on those alternative options, even if it's, like I said, a sub for the last 10, because you desperately need a goal?
Yeah,
I didn't think it was the right choice at the time, and I still feel the same now. But I suppose we are where we are, and we'll see how we get on.
Lucy, what do you think? Do you think it was negligent, or do you think if neither one of them get injured, we're not even having this conversation?
No, I do think I agree with Danny totally. I do think it was negligent, and I think that if we had the likes of James and Nonto on the bench, I feel like, or even Ramazani to some extent, I feel like against tired legs, so sort of the last 15 minutes of the Tottenham game, I think they do make a real difference. And I think squad depth is massive in the Premier League anyway. So I think letting him go without replacing him first was the massive error.
Yeah. Kaylee, what do you think that Farke maybe needs to get more out of different players? You know, obviously it's all now shoulda, woulda, coulda with the Ramazani situation. Somebody put in the chat asking whether there was a recall in Ramazani's loan. No, there's not, as far as I'm aware, because there was two things. Where's he gone? Valencia? No. Yeah, Valencia. Valencia wanted a buy clause, and we wanted a loan, like a release halfway through clause, like a recall clause, and I don't think we could agree to either, so neither team got either option. So I think that that's the case. So, Kaylee, do you think that Farke should try and do a Bielsa in terms of trying to make players be something that they're not, to coach them, essentially?
Do his job.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, I feel like we've got a lot of key players that don't play and they're sat on the bench, and I feel like they could do a lot more than what they are doing. So I feel like there needs to be a change in that department. Obviously, you've got the looks of Bijol and Tanaka, and they have so much potential. They have the potential to do good things, but obviously they're playing well, but it's just they have a lot more to do.
Yeah. Speaking of Tanaka, obviously we were all very we're not angry, we're just disappointed with Tanaka last week against Bournemouth. Did we notice any difference in him? Personally, I thought he didn't seem as nervous, but there was a lot of backwards passes. And we're not used to seeing that from Tanaka because obviously, again, different level, but in the Championship, he was very good at progressing the ball. He was safe with it, but he did try and progress the ball, whereas it felt maybe he was a little...
Okay, so I think I will answer the question until Evie comes back, as far as we got. With Tanaka, I do think that I don't know if... Oh, are you back? Oh, you're silent.
I can't hear you.
Okay. So I do think that possibly there's been an element that he's lost some confidence.
Mm.
I can't imagine that's a Farke request from Tanaka. I can only imagine that he has lost some confidence because that's what we seem to be seeing. And I felt we saw it in the Bournemouth game, and possibly that's then dented his confidence further. Because he clearly is quite a sensitive, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's not bad to be sensitive anyway, man. And he got quite, invested last season. And I just think his confidence might be rubbing off on his game just at the moment. But hopefully this international break can pull him out of that and we get Tanaka back. But luckily, with the Sean Longstaff signing and sort of some of the options we do have that versatility until he gets that confidence fully back for that central midfield role. Are you back, Evie?
I'm hoping so. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Thank goodness. Sorry, I don't know what happened there. Clearly, my curse of technology has continued. But I agree, Danny. I think that the Bournemouth mishap, regardless of how we didn't defend the set piece, which obviously we could have done, so that in itself wasn't Tanaka's fault, but he will have felt very responsible to that. And I think that maybe he's taking his time to adapt to the league. We're seeing that with a few players. I want to get everybody's opinion on Stack. I personally thought he didn't have a great game. I thought he was quite invisible, and sometimes you can be invisible in a good way. Click was quite good at that, of just, doing whatever was needed, the dirty work and things like that. But I was trying to really watch him, and he kept on losing the ball, and he was quite frustrating. Sometimes he'd arrive late into challenges as well that luckily he pulled out of. But I don't know. I'm probably more frustrated with Stack than I am Dominic Calvert-Lewin at this moment in time. And I know that may seem a bit wild because obviously a striker is supposed to be scoring goals and he's only scored one. But for me, he's not been as good as his Instagram post suggests that he probably should be. Kaylee, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think he had an amazing game. I I think before his last performances have been spectacular, so I do think we hold him to a certain level, rightly so. But like he's not been doing his job. Like you say, he was pretty invisible. I thought, I was watching and went, I haven't seen much of Stack this game, and I was wondering where he was.
Yeah, he did seem fairly invisible. Do we think we've maybe hyped him up in terms of, obviously he scored that amazing free kick against Wolves? Lucy, have we done the Leeds thing and turned him into a player that he isn't?
I think after that AC Milan game pre-season, I think we all sort of thought we've got a real sort of gem on our hands here. So I think to see him have, in a way, lackluster performances, you think, oh, this is not the Stack that we all know. But actually there is a difference in opponents and things like that you do have to obviously take into account.
Yeah. What do you think, Danny? Are we putting too much pressure on? Obviously, it is only 7 games in. We're allowing people to warm up, or are we right to hold him to a high standard? You know, this is the Premier League.
I think if it was obvious he was making big mistakes, we'd be right to criticise. You know, because he came in with a lot of promise, one of the best in the Bundesliga in his position. I understand he's not always in his exact position he was in last season. But what I would say is I do think that, like's been mentioned already tonight, this is a new team gelling together, and then we have some injuries. So it's almost like then they're having to gel with new people when they've not quite gelled with the other people. And there's some room to give leeway. I think if there had have been a very large mistake, a red card from a really silly challenge or something not quite as serious, it'd be more than reasonable. And I think it's fair to be frustrated when you don't notice a player too much in a game.
Yeah.
And when you reflect, you don't feel it was in they're effective, we've just not realised way. But I would say that I think there's time to be given, especially because, like I mentioned, our points are rolling, we're performing well. There's space to be patient at the moment. My tune might change if that does change. I will then become frustrated and very unreasonable and hate them all for no good reason. Or good reason, we'll see. But hopefully
there is never not a good reason to despise people. You know, I'm fully on board with the outrageous hatred and disgraceful swearing at players. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, sometimes I get a bee in my bonnet about a player I don't even really have an issue with. They've just decided they've annoyed me that night because they're wearing funny shin pads or something. But I will keep that away from these streams anyway. But yeah, it's time to be patient with him. What do you think, Evie?
Don't get me started with the shin pads things when they're wearing these tiny little things that, and they get paid ridiculous amounts of money and then they're out injured and they wonder why. You know, I have no idea why I, broke this, that, and the other because I'm wearing this amount of protection. I think I am getting a bit frustrated with him because I think that I'm wanting Tanaka to fight to get in. Again, I've got this big thing when it comes to competition, and I never, ever want any Leeds player to ever feel comfortable. I want them all to be performing at their very best because there's a player chomping at the bit, biting at their ankles to try and replace them on the pitch. That's what I want because I think that gets what we want. That gets the best out of the team, and that we need fighters. And obviously we saw a load of pathetic boys when we got relegated last time. You know, nobody had the shoulders to wear the shirt. And I think that this time, one thing that I will really give them, like the recruitment and the 49ers, their kind of applause for is the characters that we've brought in. Longstaff, Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I like them because they understand the league. They understand the pressure to wear a shirt for a very passionate fan base. Both, you know, Newcastle and Everton are very passionate fan bases and very vocal fan bases that will let you know what their opinion is as well. So I think that that's something that we really missed last time we were in the Premier League for that final season, was that determination, that character. And, you know, we've got the kind of razzmatazz with Okafor. We've got the grit and the determination with like your Longstaffs and Ampadu, Rodon, Bogle. We've got a lot of British players that understand as well the history and don't have to just be shown it while they're being shown around Elland Road. They actually understand and have knowledge of the club. So yeah, I would like Stack to live up to his own hype, because when you score a free kick like that, when we're quite humble when it comes to the fact that we know we're crap at set pieces. So when you start scoring set pieces, like, you're going to be loved at this club. So I want him to be successful, but I also want Tanaka to get his confidence back so that if he's called in to replace Stack, he can take that and run with it, type of thing. Let's go on to the unfortunate winning goal for Tottenham. Obviously, Kudus. The only thing that I was vaguely happy about was I hadn't taken Kudus out of my FPL team, so he got me quite a few points. But it was very bittersweet when I saw him, score, especially because, well, we'll come on to my second point after. Obviously, Struijk again. I hope that doesn't dent his confidence in terms of both of those goals were both deflections. He didn't, in my opinion, please let me know if you disagree, he didn't do anything wrong. He was defending. Lucy, go with it. What were you thinking? What were you feeling? Did they deserve it? Was it coming? Had we got lax a little bit? We've been quite frustrated with Farke sitting back in second halves when we've got something on the table.
Yeah, I think it was Gudmundsson slip, weren't it? Yeah, I feel like it is just fine margins, and it is little things that individual mistakes. So you look at Struijk. My only criticism with Struijk is I do think he could be a bit quicker to close his man down. But that is my only criticism with him. I think in terms of the second goal, I think it was harsh because it was just an individual mistake. But I also think they're the margins we've got to sort of combat with in this league, so we can't feel that hard done by.
No, Kelly, what do you think? Should Struijk be doing better? Obviously, we know he can't really improve his speed. He is what he is, and we know that right now. So maybe should he be trying to compensate that with better positional awareness? Does it give Biol a chance to question, for Farke to question Struijk and potentially put Biol in?
Well, I don't think Struijk was playing necessarily poorly. I think he was just doing his job defensively. I think the mistake came from Gabby Gudmundsson rather than Pascal Struijk, so you can't put the blame on him. I like Biol, but I think Struijk just performs a lot better.
Yeah, and if he's not doing it on the training pitch, then Farke's not gonna, he's not gonna put him in, and we know that Farke's stubborn when it comes to people have to prove it in training. They're not just going to be given the chance because we want to see a new toy. You know, he's going to want to see that. Danny, would you be wanting Struijk to start again, or would you be open for Bijol to be starting after obviously 2 unfortunate errors by Struijk?
Yeah, I want him to start again. I think it's important that after a mistake, a player gets a chance to gain back that confidence immediately. Obviously, if it became a repeated issue like it has with Millier for years up till last season, that's a different conversation. But when it's just one of those things, kind of mistakes that happens in a game, I think another game or 2 to just regain that confidence. And then if they don't, which I'm sure he will, because the only time we really saw a dip in Struijk was after that horrible injury to Harvey Elliott a few years ago.
Where he got red carded for the injury instead of the foul.
Yeah, exactly. But then there's a different conversation. But I think he'll get his confidence back. Another good game, couple of good games under his belt, and it'll just be back to normal. As unfortunate as it seems for Bijol, Struijk's been doing well, so it doesn't make any sense to swap him out just because of a couple of mistakes.
Again, this is what I want. You know, I want people fighting to keep their places. I want people who we, you know, maybe doubted would make that. You know, we've seen Struijk in the Premier League, and we've seen him have a good season or half a season because he was in and out when Liam Cooper was in and out with injuries and red card suspensions and things in the first season back up in the Prem. You know, he was brilliant under Bielsa, and then obviously Jesse Marsch came along and played him at left back, and his confidence was absolutely shot to pieces because he's not a left back. Mainly because exactly what Lucy said with the lack of speed. You can't be a left back in the Premier League if you have 0 speed. And
under Marsch unfit, just to add, very unfit.
Yeah, just unfit in general, because apparently Bielsa's hard work just carries on. You don't actually have to maintain it.
Yeah.
They're just fit because Bielsa made them fit. Anyway, let's not get me started with a Marsch rant. Right, I'm going to bring something up, and if there's any opposition fans watching, they may call me a crybaby or whatever. But can we just talk about the absolutely pathetic, ridiculous, outrageous, disgusting, and every other negative adjective you can possibly think to describe Thomas Bramall, the referee? Because that is honestly one of the worst refereeing performances in the first half for both teams, and in the second half, more. I'm going to say it with chest, as Joe would say. More towards Leeds, in terms of we were on the wrong end of multiple decisions, and it was frustrating to high hell that that he was allowing some, maybe even some subliminal kind of thoughts and feelings about Leeds United, considering who he is a fan of, kind of make the way through to the performance. So I think that the referee, I'm not saying that he cost us the game, but I'm saying he cost us the potential of the game. And I want to get your opinions on whether you think I'm being overdramatic or whether there's any truth to my deep, disgusting hatred of that referee. Kaylee, what do you think?
I think you're 100% valid, if I'm honest. Here's my opinion. I don't think if you have an agenda against a team, I don't think you should be refereeing them. If you're not gonna look through the lens of this is going to be 100% fair, then you should be refereeing. I think it was in the air on Saturday, bad refereeing, because at the Town game there was poor refereeing there as well. But yeah, I don't think you're wrong in saying that he was just being a terrible referee. The decisions he'd make, I just think that was a bit that was a bit harsh. But what does everyone else think?
Lucy, what were your, you were there, you saw him make more decisions than I probably saw him make.
Yes, I was very animated in the stands, we'll put it like that. And a lot of naughty words exited my mouth. It's just inconsistency. There was just no consistency in any of the decisions that he was given. So he'd give a foul one way, and then the exact same foul pretty much would happen, and he wouldn't give that one. I think he wanted to be sort of the star of the show a little bit, and I mean, he did his job well in that regard.
Absolutely. I know you didn't see the whole the game, Danny, but is it right that fans are so negative on referees? Have you seen anything at all this season that would make you stand up and defend a referee?
No, but I think with British referees, they've been nothing but criticised for a long time. And that's not just within Britain, from fans that talk about bias or just talk about inconsistency or a lack of understanding whatever rules are introduced that week or other. They're criticised internationally as well, and very rarely picked when it's international tournaments. I think our standard of refereeing is disgraceful. And then I think was mentioned, the bias is allowed time and time again. We have been refereed by Man United fans, Sheff Wednesday fans, Sheff United fans. We've been refereed by fans of teams that it would benefit for us to lose, so that they can be above us near the end of a season when it's a promotion season or not. Sometimes we've seen it again and again and again, and it happens to a lot of clubs. I think we get frustrated because a lot of clubs kind of have an issue with Leeds. But we're not the only ones. And I do think there's also a big issue with top six bias, which we were playing against, however silly it seems based off last year's sort of standings. There is top six bias. I scream it all the time about Liverpool. And I mean, no offence, I don't mind Liverpool really, if I'm honest. But you sometimes watch a game and go, what on earth is that? That is ridiculous. And you saw it for Man United at least most of my childhood, coming into my 20s. It was absolutely ridiculous. I think it's a disgrace, our refereeing. And I think I saw a comment, I don't remember who made it, that we need international referees in this country. That's quite clear.
Yeah. I think, again, a bit like what I was saying about that I want to see players fighting for their positions. I want to see referees fighting for their positions. And also, why, when referees have a poor performance in the Premier League, is there immediate option to be demoted to the Championship? The Championship, where they're choosing whether, they're refereeing vital games where teams are fighting to get into the Premier League. They could cost teams by poor refereeing decisions literally hundreds of millions of pounds by poor refereeing standards. Look at the Middlesbrough game last season, in terms of the Bamford and the Nonto goal that got ruled out. You saw how close us and Burnley were. What if it was goal difference between us and Sheff United that meant that we didn't go up and we'd had 2 goals wrongfully disallowed because of poor refereeing and linesmen? All of these decisions have such a knock-on effect. Why should the lower leagues be like, oh, you're less important, so you get the referees from above who've had a poor game to referee your games? How's that a consequence? Oh no, I just have to watch 2 different games of football instead. I don't get it. And it was the decision. Referees, considering they referee a game which contains a lot of balls, so many referees have 0 of their own, because Pellegrini for Spurs got a yellow card for fouling Aronson, and then he's there gestating to the linesman and to the referee, going like that, saying that Aronson diving. Please tell me if I've got the rules of the game wrong. Is that not dissent? So should he not have had a second yellow card? Why didn't he get sent off? That's dissent. That's a yellow card.
Because we're Leeds.
Exactly.
Can I just say that 95% of referees' decisions are accurate, but it just seems that we fall into that 5%. I was listening to a podcast the other day about referee decisions in VAR, and it said like 95% of them are accurate, but it seems when it comes to Leeds, they're not quite.
But also, there's like I was saying about the Championship, there's huge amounts of money involved, and obviously 1975, not that we live in the past at all, but we've seen ourselves decades worth of decisions that shouldn't have happened. We've seen it, we've felt the pain, but there's also such massive financial ramifications now of these referees not being held accountable. And I also agree with what Jason Taylor's put about it's not just the refs, it's also VAR. There's no accountability because they don't make decisions. They just allow play to go on and think, somebody will tell me in my ear. So they don't actually have to referee. You get to the top of the stage in the Premier League and you have to do less of a job because of the fact that you've got VAR. So you've got all your pals telling you whether you've made a good decision or not.
Yeah. I was actually just going to use what you said about what you said, Kaylee. So I didn't actually see the 95% a correct thing. That's them assessing themselves as well.
Is it?
So you can. I didn't see it, but normally when they assess if they got it right or wrong, they're assessing themselves. So I'd add 10% to it just to be a bit more cynical.
Yeah, this is where there should be an independent board that regulates clubs, regulates referees, because we cannot play the game without referees. So referees are important, and I don't agree with anything other than the occasional bit of bantering abuse. I don't agree with racism or sexism or anything like that. But if you are calling out a poor performance and if you are calling the referee a banker with a W, I fully support that, because that is just a generic term. You're not picking out that person for an individual. You're saying your decisions and your skills are lacking at this moment in time. And I don't like to waste blame referees, but there were game-changing moments that referee had a part in, and not sending Polina off for 2 yellow card offences simply because, he's done one right after the other, so they all kind of merge. No, the foul was a yellow card and dissent is a yellow card. They did it last year with Arsenal in the first few games of last season, ended up, I think, with 3 players over the course of the first 10 games being sent off for second yellow cards. So if they can do it, do it. Like, don't be a wuss. The rules are there, and then you'll have a much tighter control on the game if you apply the rules. People like us get fed up, think that there's bias against us because the rules are not applied correctly and consistently. And I would agree, and I know that people would probably say that I wouldn't. Even if that meant that we got players sent off, if they were doing that across the board, fine. But we would be that team right now. We would be that team that would have that second yellow when we've seen time after time again players not be sent off because, be a little bit unfair. Come on, we don't want to do it that early. Like, come on. It's like, just do it. Just show the players that you've got control of the game. Players, act up, and if they know that they can get away with it, then they're going to do it again.
I think you're right. You're just on about consistency. And I think, we were getting frustrated about the idea of dissent earlier. It's because we do see that is definitely where there's, maybe it isn't a big 6 bias, but a big player bias. A Van Dijk or again, it sounds like I'm picking on Liverpool. Give me someone else. A Van Dijk or a...
Come on, keep digging.
Bruno Fernandes can sit and complain in the referee's face all day, yeah, but if absolutely. A Dan James or a whoever from a different team was doing the same thing, they would be a lot harsher with it. And like you said, when we mentioned the Struijk red card, he was sent off for the injury, not necessarily for the challenge. It has
sent
that
off because
wavering effect on a game.
Protested so much
Yeah.
about the injury that, you know, again, managers, Arteta, how Arteta isn't sent off every single game, I have no idea, because in theory, and when you see Farke got another yellow card last season when he laid down on the pitch celebrating that we'd got a last minute winner against Sunderland, I think it was, because he then missed the Sheffield United game. You get carded for celebrating when the ball is out of play. Everybody's up the other end of the pitch, so you being on the pitch makes no relevance to anything, and you get yellow carded. But then, you know, you go like that in a diving motion to the ref and scream in his face, and that's not a yellow card. And I agree, it's not a red card offence, but it is a yellow card offence. If that happens to give you a red card because it's a second yellow, that's your fault for not being in control of yourself. So, right, let's move on before I really go into rant mode. Let's talk about the next game, which obviously is a massive game. Obviously, my positivity when it comes to these games, we don't have to beat Spurs. We don't have to beat Arsenal. These aren't the games that we need to win. Burnley, that's the game we need to win. You know, it is a cliched 6-pointer. We have to win. There's no choice in this, in my opinion, because we dropped the points against Bournemouth. If we'd have won against Bournemouth or gotten a draw against Spurs, you could maybe even say we could probably even take a draw. It's away from home. That's okay. But for me, it's a must win, you know, because they're not in good form now. They haven't won any of their last 5 games. They've only got 1 point in their last 5 games. So, and I would love to be the people that make, you know, Scott Parker take off his cardigan and stress out. I would love to be that team that does that, especially considering that he won at Elland Road last season. I'd love to be the one to stick it to him. And you know, Danny, take it away. What do you think it's a must win, or are you a little bit more pragmatic still?
Yeah, it's a must win for me. I saw Wolves the same way. I was saying, even though I was on holiday all day, I was saying it's a must win, it's a must win, it's a must win. And then I went, we won, and everyone's going, you're happy, yeah. But I banged on about it all day, of course. But it's it's definitely a must win because, like I said, point a game. That's 3 games covered with the point a game, so it leaves you some leeway elsewhere, which hopefully you don't have to use, and you can just keep totting up points, which is at the moment kind of what we're doing. We're a tiny bit ahead of schedule, but it's not even just the lack of, you know, getting all 3 at Bournemouth or a point at Fulham. For me, it's what it symbolises. They came up with us. They didn't recruit as well as Sunderland or as well as we did, in my opinion, and we should be winning against them anyway. So I think it's an important game to win.
Absolutely. Lucy, I see you nodding away. Do you think it's a must win? What if we're down and out and they're winning 1-0 and they've gone super, super defensive? Do you take a draw, or do you say, no, that's not good enough, we have to get a win? You know, what is it for you at this point?
No, I think you look at the teams that are stereotypically sort of, I've said this before, that are sort of going to finish in and around you. I think we have to be beaten. So I think even to say the West Ham at home game's a bit of a must win as well. So I think the next 2 are really important, and they'll give us a clearer idea of what to expect going forward.
Yeah, that's a good point. Kaylee, what do you think? Is it back-to-back must-win games then?
Yeah, I agree with Lucy. We especially need to be beating Burnley, as you said, they came up with us, and they've been an inconsistent team. They didn't come up with us, did they?
Burnley did, yeah.
Yeah, I was questioning myself. Yeah, they've been inconsistent recently. They're a yo-yo team, so they've not really, what's the word? they've not really like made it in the Premier League. So we want to be knocking points against them, 3 points.
Absolutely, and hopefully Dan James probably won't be back by then, but Nonto should be back by then. So at least that gives us a little bit extra kind of attack, because we are going to need that, because they will just sit in and defend. And even though they aren't as defensively solid as they were last year, different goalkeeper, and obviously they've had quite a change to their midfield and back line, but they're still under Scott Parker, so they will, you can still guarantee that they will play defensive football. Whether they play it well it's kind of up to us to decide as to how often we test them, and whether Dominic Calvert-Lewin has his scoring head and feet on him, or whether he's going to do his best Bamford impression and not score. So right, let's do score predictions, because I am aware that we've been going over an hour now, which has absolutely flown by. But let's do score predictions. Kaylee, I'll come back round to you first. What are your predictions for Burnley versus Leeds?
I'd say a 2-0 win. No, 2-1. They score first, and then we get to.
Oh my God, is this going to be it the whole season? We're going to have to fight back every single game.
I secretly love it though.
I only love it when we come out with, the right end of the deal. Danny, what are your score predictions for Burnley versus Leeds?
I'll go 1-0. I'll go conservative. We come out a little bit frustrated, but we got the 3 points, so we're happy.
Yeah. Lucy, that's a fair assessment.
I'm gonna go 3-1.
I'm presuming to us and not to Burnley.
Yeah. Definitely not to Burnley. I've got family who are Burnley, so we definitely need to be beating them.
Oh, absolutely. Let's stick it to them, just to have it so that you can do it over Christmas dinner, and you can have a go and say, well, we're just Leeds. I think my heart says 3-0. My head says, I kind of think Kaylee scores right, but I'm going to go something different. I'll go, what did you say, Lucy?
3-1.
You went 3-1. I'm going to go 2-0. I'm going to say Daniel Farke will be super happy, because we will get back to a clean sheet. And I think we will have equaled Leicester's clean sheet tally for the season if we get a clean sheet against Burnley, which I think we can do, because we've been very good at limiting XG against. We are right up there. Obviously, we take into account the deflections, and if we just take Arsenal out of the equation, full stop. But yeah, so I'm going 2-0. 2-1 from Kaylee, 3-1 from Lucy, and a very tense, squeaky bum time 1-0 from Danny. Right. Well, there we go. All wins across the board, not a single draw. So please, Leeds, don't let us down. Don't let us look like numpties more than we already do. I think we'll leave it there. Has anybody else got anything from predictions or the game that they want to talk about before we head off?
I'm just going to point out Joe said 2-0.
Joe, you see, Joe's just copying me. Such a copycat, can't come up with his own ideas. Even though I think he probably said it before me, but we don't go there. Right, well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, ladies, for joining me and Joe, who's lurking somewhere in the background. This evening, that sounded really sinister. I didn't mean it to make it sound that sinister. After this stream, there is a redirect onto MHF. I've read that to make sure that I definitely got it correct. So please follow, go and watch that afterwards. Thank you, everybody who has commented. I'll just one sec. There's a couple of chats. Diallo sent quite a few little bits. Hello, Leeds ladies. Nice to meet you. We love Joe. We do indeed. Leeds looked a solid Premier League team and competitive. And and DCL needs rhythm of the games to get back to his best. We all agree with that, and we're giving him a little bit of time to come back. So thank you everybody for the for joining us on our Leeds Ladies, and we will see you next week. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.